Welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
All right, everybody, welcome to the show. My name is Tom Dutta. I'm the Quiet Warrior, and you're live streaming here. We're live streaming across all the social platforms. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, X, and Rumble, one of my favorite new feeds. I want to put something on the screen here for a minute. I have a couple announcements to make before we get into the interview with our guest. So first of all, we're recently being recognized by Million Podcasts, a global platform used by PR and media professionals to track the world's most impactful shows. I'm proud, everyone, as we kick off 2026 to announce that our show has been ranked in the top 100 life stories podcasts internationally. And even more exciting for our local and professional community, we've been named one of the top 10 Pacific Northwest leadership podcasts and one of the top 10 Canadian leadership podcasts on the web today. Recognition because of all of you. Here's another one. I'm proud to announce that the Quiet Warrior Show has been recognized for the second time as one of the top 20 Canadian leadership podcasts by FeedSpot. FeedSpot, if you don't know, is a leading podcast discovery platform. And what they do is they curate and rank podcasts across numerous niche categories. So we're excited about that. The last one, and I'm bragging here, but for a good reason, the last one, if you look at on the left there, we're ranked number 2, the number 2 CEO podcast, the number 2 out of 30 in Canada and the US. That just dropped literally a month ago. What would it be like to know something about our guest from the inside out? When I first read John Krotec's Show Fit message, I felt the presence of a story that wasn't polished for performance. It wasn't rehearsed. It was something lived, something earned, and something that still carries heat. John grew up in a military environment where discipline was normal, but emotional survival was silent. Underneath that structure lived experiences no child should endure. Later, a traumatic brain injury cracked open the vault he had kept locked for decades. Most people spend their lifetimes avoiding the truth. John made a decision to walk towards it. From the Andes Mountains to entrepreneurship, from global conversations with political and military leaders, to founding NeoMasculinity Solutions, John has been building clarity out of chaos. Not as a consultant, but as a man who knows what it feels like to lose himself and then fight his way back. What moves me is not his achievements alone. It's the transformation of John. The willingness to take the raw, unfiltered material of his life and turn it into a handbook. You see that handbook I just held up there. A mission in that handbook and a movement that helps others reclaim their agency. This conversation today is not about a brand or platform. It's about a human being beneath all of it. It's about the moment a person stops running from their story and begins rewriting it instead. And that's where the Quiet Warrior lives. I'd like to welcome to the studio, John Krotec. Hey, John, welcome, buddy.
Hey, Tom. Man, right off the bat, there's a lot to unpack. Kudos to you for all those awards. Thank you to the audience who's listening live today. Without, like you said earlier, without them, the show doesn't happen. And this introduction is anything but a Quiet Warrior. And it's good. I love it. And it's great to be alive, and it's great to be live, and it's great to be here. So thank you.
Yeah. So let's get to know you just on the surface. So tell us, what part of the world are you in? Because as you know, we're international, coming from across Canada and USA today.
Well, I am smack dab in Northwest Virginia, beautiful state of Virginia here in America. In the Shenandoah Valley. I moved up here 5 years ago, and that's where I'm at. I had previously been in Florida most of my life, and my wife, who's a Virginian, told me a few years ago it's time for me to spend some time in her home state. So we're up here now.
That's awesome. Now it's wintertime, right? So what's your climate like down there this time of year?
Climate change is alive and well. We're experiencing like mid-60s today, which is crazy in the middle of January in the Shenandoah Valley. Last year on the same day, we had snow on the ground. So no snow, and it's been very pleasant this week.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, truly the magic of the internet and being able to be across continents. John, I've traveled a lot in the U.S. through my corporate career before I started doing this stuff. So being to many of the states, and now that I know you, we'll definitely want to come down and meet you and maybe break some bread together.
Anytime.
So let me,
tea, whatever you want.
absolutely. So, hey, John, are you ready to go into Plato's garden and do some critical thinking?
Hey, all the time, and it's funny that you asked that question because I feel like it's what we so badly need these days. Authenticity, which is basically being integral, is so badly needed in the digital world, especially. But yeah, let's go to the garden. Let's unpack it. Let's give some real value to the people who are spending their day or their time listening to you and me.
What would it be like to go into Plato's garden and walk and talk with John Krotec? Well, everybody, welcome to Plato's Garden. And John, just for the audience, I want to explain this. And this is such a treat because for the first time since I've done the show, we've done over 330 live streams. I've never met somebody who understands critical thinking as well as you, my friend. So let's tell the audience. So Plato's Garden, Plato was an Athenian philosopher during the classical period in ancient Greece, founder of the Platonist school of thought in the academy, from the Greek word academia, and the first institution of higher learning apparently in Western world. And you can kind of see everyone on the screen there, Plato and Aristotle, and they're kind of walking, talking, right? They're not just having thoughts, but they're talking about their thoughts. What we're going to do with you, John, is weave through what I call the influences of context. Now, the audience won't know I'm doing this, but the three areas I'm going to ask you questions and dialogue and tell stories is to take you through three things. Macro. So what was happening in the global world around John that influences public work? And some guys go right back to their childhood. Number two is mezzo. What was happening in the sector where you're doing your work? You're an author, you're a teacher, you're a trainer, you're a former military vet. And three is micro, my favorite, man. What was happening in the personal life that has influenced your public works? So as we do this, what we're going to ask the audience to do is start connecting all the dots, critically thinking about everything you say, and they're going to find a deeper meaning to the guy who you are. So I'm going to start it off by throwing something out, and we'll just riff on it. So we'll go into micro first. That's your inner life, your identity, your personal truth. So, hey, man, when you look back at your childhood through today's clarity, what parts of the story still echo inside you?
Great question, and it's great to be here in the garden. I would say, my exposure to the real world started at a young age as my dad dragged me around with him to meet his clients. He sold life insurance, and I met people of all persuasions, religion, race, income level. What I learned very quickly was all humans have basic needs. And then what I learned later on is all humans have different needs. And as somebody in business or somebody connecting dots, as you so put it, we have to be able to listen, and we have to be able to understand how these needs integrate and how we can help each other. That came from a purely business mindset, but it was a great expose into how people operated. Hey, John, what is your dad's name? Is he still with you today? He's gone. He's been gone about 20 years. He passed away. His name was John. I'm not a junior. He was a John Francis, and I was a John Thomas. And he was from Pennsylvania, came to Florida, met my mom, married her, and never went home. And so I was raised primarily in the Sunshine State of Florida. That's awesome. Well, we'll honor your dad, of course, because we're shaped by our parents and their stories. And as you say things, you're evoking or provoking in me thoughts, and that's what this is about. I'm not a talking head host. So what I wanted to tell you is when you said something about your dad being dragging you everywhere as a life insurance salesman, I have a very good friend who's actually was a salesman, and he's a lawyer, corporate lawyer today. And I met him when I was 20 years old. And his dad dragged him everywhere, but guess what? His dad sold underwear, women's underwear. So we definitely have interesting experiences with our dads. By the way, my father passed away in 2018. His name's Ashok or Ash, and I have his name as my middle name. And you and I have something in common in that, well, maybe not so much directly, but my father was a military commanding officer in the Canadian forces. He started in the British forces.
So I want to say to you, I honor you for your story, because we'll get into this little book here, but everything you stand for, but clearly you've done a lot of service. Let's throw this out at you. What did your brain injury? So when I read your information, researched you, there's something about having a brain injury that revealed. So what was it about that revealed what you didn't know you were carrying in you?
You know, when we're faced with a trauma like that as a young child, you know, obviously it gets shelved 99% of the time. No child should ever have to go or be exposed to that type of violation. And so my life was always one of hard charger, innovator, looking for solutions, and then getting to a place of success, and then always finding a way to sabotage it somehow.
Yeah.
Different ways. We don't need to go into those, but you know, over and over and over again, it was a vicious cycle. I call it the black hole of human being. And we're cycling through guilt and shame and blame and all these things. And then there was an interrupt, and that was the alcohol-induced accident in 2012, which forced me into a 5-year journey of insomnia. And the insomnia was horrible, you know, to get up every morning and pace the house and turn on all the lights. And so I knew that once I found out that the drugs that they gave me to control the insomnia weren't working, I had to find a different solution. And so I reached out, humbled myself, which is tough to do sometimes, and asked for help. And I found a very qualified, extremely bright and hard therapist. She was phenomenal. And I went through weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, several months of cognitive behavioral therapy to identify what my real issue was. And I had never addressed the assault that I had experienced as a third grader.
Wow.
And so,
hey, John, let me just jump in there and riff with you, man. I'm going to put some back on the screen. So we're in the micro there talking about you, and I want to challenge you in a good way. Something you said when you were telling the part of the story, you said, but we don't have to get into that. And I'm going to say, no, we will get into that, because being vulnerable and hearing the bits of the story, as painful there are, is going to really help our audience see and know you. So I'm just going to say I honor you for being vulnerable and sharing what you just did. So you've got a lot of things going on in my brain on journey. So a couple of clarifying things to ask you. You said you had this alcohol-induced brain injury. What happened? Can you just describe what you're comfortable? Did you fall or something? Or
no. My wife had left to go up north for a break, and a buddy of mine who was leaving for Peru said, "Hey, let's go out tonight and have a good time." Right?
Yeah.
So I knew I wasn't going to see him for a while, and I was like out on a free pass, you should think. And we had a couple of glasses of wine, probably more than we needed to. And then it was about 11 o'clock at night. And we did the chest bump thing. See you, brother. I love you, man. And he got into his vehicle. I hopped in the Jeep. And the next thing I know, I've been involved in an accident. I literally, Tom, and to the audience, I don't even remember leaving the bar.
Wow.
And so I didn't even realize that I had hit another car. And so I woke up the following morning in a hospital with a excruciating pain in my head. And then that's when I found out that I had actually slammed into the rear end of a car, went through a red light, hit the curb, and damaged myself. And it was almost immediately that we talked about those things. So over drinking, overspending, being deceptive, not always being totally honest with others. And those are the things that I used throughout most of my life to cope with the injury, to cope with the emotional injury.
Yeah.
So then began the long journey of court and driving under the influence. They found out later in a blood test that there was something else in my system that I was unaware of. You know, we talk about these people slip things in your drinks, right? And it was found that there was something that didn't belong there. Hence,
really?
You drink 2 or 3 glasses of wine and feel the way I did, it wasn't right. My credit cards were missing the following morning. You know, who went into my wallet and took out my credit cards? But anyhow, that's accentuating stuff. So that's what began the journey of trying to figure out why I acted and behaved the way that I did as an adult. And I thank the universe every day, thank God, that I did not kill somebody, including myself. And I'm here to tell the story. And that's how I got here.
Pretty amazing. Hey, let's correct one thing on just the positioning. Can you slide over a little bit? Your head's under the brand of there you go. Just perfect. Awesome. Hey, everybody, doesn't John look great? I've seen some pictures of you. You're a pretty well built guy, and you filled the screen very well on a podcast.
I need to lose 25 pounds, Tom. I'm really.
Well, it doesn't show it on the screen. Sometimes when I have people on, they're so tiny and they can't fill the screen, and I'm going like, this is really great to have you fill the screen. Why that's important, by the way, to the audience is what we take these long stream, we make viral clip videos and we put them out. We're going to do, John, a surprise for you, over 100 viral clips taken from this. You're going to be everywhere as part of the final production, man. So having you look like that really is not me saying anything for ego. It's going to be fantastic. I just want to riff more on this, okay? Because there's so many interesting things here. You talked about some trauma from early years and CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and what you uncovered or you learned that was missing. So I want to just share something with you as your now new friend. My father was a addicted alcoholic. My dad was in the Army, but started drinking, left home when I was 12. So many people follow me, know my story. And I endured the mental, physical part of his abuse. I have two other brothers. So he left home when I was 12. And he drank, and how he stopped drinking was he almost killed a woman and child in his car, drinking and driving. And there'd be multiple events of him drinking, driving. And my brothers and I, even one night, had to pick him up out of a prison or a jail cell. So one of the things that comes to mind, and when I give it back to you, talk about it, is in my family, I learned there's my great-grandfather, I just learned this recently, was an indentured laborer. So he's part of slavery. And my dad's dad was an alcoholic. And then my dad. So all my life, and I'll stop on this last point, John, because there's a reason for telling you this. All my life, John, I had made up what I call neural adaptations, but I'd made up stories in my head about why I felt shame, why I didn't think I looked good or didn't like me, why everything worked out, all these stupid stories that weren't even true. And then when I learned all about the generational trauma that passed down, I went, holy shit, now I understand why Dad did what he did. And I think I'm going to say this to my audience. I never said it live. I think my father left me because he had to break the chain of generational trauma. So take it back now and just talk about this part of the shame and the journey you went through, what you learned about it. What was the greatest strengths that came out of that for you too? And anything you want to say about what I just threw back at you?
Well, no, but thank you for sharing the things about your own life. And it's a challenge at times, but it gets easier to be vulnerable. And if we're not vulnerable, there's no way that we could ever be authentic people. And so the strength that came out of that was realizing a couple of things. First of all, and I had never done this, and this was part of the therapy with the insomnia, my therapist said, the next time you wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning, instead of going around the house, just go into your bathroom, flick on the light, look in the mirror and go, hey, I love you, man. And I didn't kind of get it at first, Tom. So what happened was that night, sure enough, 1:30 in the morning, I'm up. I go into the bathroom. I'm looking around. I'm separated from my wife, so I'm all alone. There's nobody there. And I go up to the mirror and I go, I love you, man. And then I look around and it's kind of, I've never said that to myself. And I go, I'm back in bed. So this went on for a few months. I'm talking about self-love. I learned self-love and I learned forgiveness. So what I had to learn was to appreciate who I was and then forgive myself for any of the stupid things that I'd done either to myself or to others over my entire life. And that was the greatest strength that came out of that time period for me, was to learn how to actually say it and believe it. And that's where it starts.
That's very cool. I'm going to put some on the screen here to highlight you again. Look at that guy, handsome looking guy on the screen there. I'm not talking about myself, by the way. And that book, I'm going to ask you to tell us a bit about it, but I have it here and I'm going to encourage everybody to get it and read it. But it says on page 53, there is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear. And that's a quote from the Bible, Jesus Christ Bible, John chapter 4. And it's funny, John, because what you just said, I highlighted that after I read the Sentinel here. And I highlighted that part about love and self-love. So, man, you really talk, you preach what you walk the walk of what you talk. So that's pretty awesome. I was baptized Catholic as a kid. My father was a Hindu. Yeah, and I follow Christianity, and back here is the Bible. And then you might have known that in 2018, this is why I love you and your story so much. I fell on my head in a bathtub and had a serious brain injury myself. And it took me 5 years, and I went into deep depression. Every crazy thing, suicidal ideation. I have some visual issues still with my eyes swimming. It took me 5 years to go through that. But what was interesting, John, is what you taught us is so awesome. Everybody, you got to come back and listen to that part of the show. It unlocked during my recovery, taking therapy and all these things they made me do, the childhood traumas that I had buried. So I want to get further into your story. You're so awesome with it. Was there a moment when you realized the clarity, that clarity had become your greatest strength? And then what does leadership look like in the quiet moments when no one sees that work?
Some great questions. And thank you for pointing that out in the Sentinel Handbook, and we will get to that. But, leadership means many things to different people.
Yeah.
But it all begins with one person. Moi, you, anybody. It begins with you, self-leadership. If you can't be in control or have a handle on your own emotional state, there's no way that you're ever going to be able to navigate the challenges and the pitfalls that life will throw at us. And it's funny because a friend of mine, we got into high altitude climbing for several years, over a decade. And a friend of mine was being interviewed by a newspaper, an article we were working on. And they said, what does mountaineering mean to you? And he goes, it's whoever suffers the best, right? You can't breathe. You can't eat. You got headaches. You got, cerebral edema. Your nose is bloody. So I just took what he said and I said, you know what? Life is whoever suffers the best. And that doesn't mean that we wallow in the mire. What it means is we are challenged to create coping skills, not just to survive and overcome the suffering, which everybody goes through, but we develop patterns and programs which are healthier than the ones that we had been living. So the reality is life is whoever suffers the best. Love yourself, forgive yourself, and start to develop patterns of behavior that will overcome the suffering. We can't escape our human bodies and what is thrown at us.
Yeah, it's incredible. What high level? You said high level climbing. What? How do you define that? Would that be like an Everest type deal, or
those type of deals? Anything over 5,000 meters, where there's ice and there's crevasses. Wow. And there's all this, and there on the mountain was as close as I could come to recreating the military. Small teams, people of like minds, and overcoming challenges. Some people never get out of the tent. They get up, the wind's blowing, it's too cold. They never reach the summit. But I'll tell you this, when you're standing on the ground above the clouds, 4,000 or 5,000 feet, however far they are, and you can witness the curvature of the earth, and you're not in a plane, you accomplished something. And then to make it back down. So we can talk about changing and transforming our lives, but until we actually do the work, and it's not easy. It's challenging. You said 5 years and you're still experiencing things. It's not easy for anybody to overcome anything that's traumatized us. You could have lost your favorite dream job, and that could create trauma. And some people have had worse traumas. What are the stats, Tom? 70% of the global population have experienced at least one major trauma, and 40% multiple traumas.
Yeah. This is a good teaching moment on the show to come back to everyone. I'm an advocate for mental health, but man, because of your background in the military, and I want to hear a bit about just lay of the land on that, because we want to weave that in for people to critically think about your lifeline. I think about the word trauma, and I studied it recently as part of my I'm doing a doctorate degree, and nice. I didn't know what it meant, man. I thought trauma was like, somebody punched you in the face or whatever, but trauma could be as simple as you're a young child and your mom and dad are on their phones all the time and they're leaving for work and you're saying, mommy, mommy, daddy, daddy, and they're not paying attention to you. And as a child, you feel like you're traumatized. Or somebody outside says you're fat or you're stupid. And as a child, that just becomes truth. going back to the stuff on mental health, tell me about the military, because there's a lot of veterans who come back and we hear about PTSD and things like that. What was your experience, and how do you think veterans should stay mentally healthy when they come back? Do they get help? Are they vulnerable enough to say there's something wrong? We don't hear enough of those stories.
Well, the military, thanks for asking that question, Tom. The military is, and as you know, with military father, it's a unique environment.
Yeah.
Not everybody's cut out for the military. And I'm not saying you have to be in the military to have a great life, because you don't. But,
That's right.
I decided, my dad was a commanding officer too, U.S. Army. And he didn't drink, but he certainly was angry. And he certainly extolled a lot of corporal punishment on us as kids. And, I honor the man now. I'm not going to diss it, but I can tell you this. Corporal punishment means corporal punishment. And my family, that's what it meant. So I went in the military out of a sense of duty.
Yeah.
I raised my right hand.
How old were you, John, when you went in there?
I was a bit older. I was 26. I did a little bit of a different route that most people do. I went to college first, got my degree, got out in the corporate lifestyle. And that was 2 jobs trying to get through there. And it was fun.
What were the jobs?
Well, I worked in a gym. I worked in a restaurant.
Okay.
I worked sandblasting metal. We worked repainting apartments I did everything. We were a jack of all trade, really, my buddies and me. And we had read Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich. And we thought we were J-Paul Gettys at the age of 19. And so we were always looking for innovative ideas to make money. And what's interesting, though, is we always had money.
Interesting. Yeah.
So I helped out buying groceries, mom and dad. And, I was able to, a lot of the money that I made actually went to the education. It was a lot less expensive in the 70s than it is now. But anyhow, so into the service. And what I learned immediately was humility. They break you down. Yeah. They make you realize that you're not really this and all that. And even though you mentioned lifting weights, even though I thought I was a badass, excuse the language, I wasn't. And so once you're broken down and you're humbled, they build you up. They start to build you up again. And what happens is you start to have more confidence in yourself, and you start to have more confidence in your teammates around you. So I learned you can do things on your own, but to accomplish the major missions, it's great to have a team of like-minded individuals. And that's what I walked away with out of the service was, I can do this.
Yeah.
There's not a challenge that's too tough that I cannot overcome. And then, like I said, teamwork in an organizational setting is everything. And we have to have everybody dialed in to be on the same mission. One thing about leadership, though, as a non-commissioned officer, I never asked any of my subordinate soldiers to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. So I set an example early on, and that probably came from my dad. Be the example, lead by example. And sometimes it's tough to do the right thing. There were many times in my life I did the wrong thing, but you're going to make those mistakes. So I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it actually answers well. And it's funny because riffing back and forth, more things come to mind. One thing that came up was about, you said you got some from your dad, right, about leadership. What I want to say is my dad was command and control, and that was, and you talk about this, that was it. I mean, I was a black and blue kid, I get it, buddy. My dad, when he died, like I met him, and for the first time I was estranged for most of my life, but I found out his true life story, right, and then I realized why he was like he is, and I forgave him. But he was command and control. So when I went out early in my career, I was a manager at age 21. I started in the banking industry and became a CEO at 31. I had trouble in the first third of my career climbing the ladder because I was using command and control style of leadership. Do as I say, not as I do. I was winning awards and doing well. I was being well paid, but I had a coach at that time who said, if you're going to be the man, you got to make some change. And so the question would be, how do you adapt the style of leadership from the military, or what's your advice to people who go out and become leaders in society? Because in my opinion, the next generations don't like being told what to do or this command and control style. It's a very different place, right?
It is a very different place. And it's a great question as as usual from you, Tom. Leadership means different things to different people. We clarified that, but the reality is each of us has unique skill sets.
Yeah.
Some are more powerful in one area than another. And I say this, to anybody out there, if you haven't done it already, grab yourself a legal pad and jot down in the quiet of your study or room or wherever you like to hang out, your favorite chair, and write down your strengths.
Yeah.
Just write them down. What are your strengths? And when the Army paid a lot of money to have me go through the primary leadership development course, and I learned that there's 10 or 12 basic traits that all leaders exemplify. And like I said, some more than others. Now, as far as the Sentinel Handbook goes, and this is no disrespect to anybody, regardless of their age, but we wanted to write something that an 8th grader could read, that could understand it at a base level. And then we wrote it in 9 languages. But really what that is, that's just a primer to lay out a challenge, something that's going on in the world right now with the lack of Plato's Garden, and then some ways that we can get back on track to reignite our intuition and to reignite critical thinking skills, to develop logical and reasonable belief systems, and then to just practice a little bit of common sense. And it's amazing, the more aware we become, how we see things.
For sure.
I don't mean like we can walk through walls or any of that kind of stuff. Superman X-ray vision, but you can pick up on people's frequencies just within a few minutes, maybe even shorter. And once you do that as a leader that's constantly evaluating situations, look for solutions. Don't be part of the divisive. Don't be part of division, or look for collaboration. Look for common ground. You might like, name a Canadian football team. The BC Lions, British Columbia Lions. Okay, you might love those guys, and I might love the Alouettes, whoever. But you and I could go to fisticuffs on which team is better.
True.
We can even remember plays from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But what we do when we're like that is we forget that we both have a love for Canadian football.
Yeah.
And so when we're busy jabbering, like I do a lot, and not doing this, not listening, then we lose this ability or this opportunity to build trust with other people. So listening is important.
Yeah, Canadian football, dude, I had no idea you knew about the Canadian football. I love both leagues. As you know, wider field here, 3 downs, different game. But grew up, my dad used to take us to an open field stadium to watch the Lions. And my first Grey Cup, and some of the American players that play in our league. I have a good friend, Kerry Carter, who runs a company in Seattle, and he played for the Seattle Seahawks, but also the Montreal team here. And
remember Danny McManus?
Oh yeah, totally.
He went to my alma mater, FSU, in Tallahassee, and he was in the Canadian Football League for years. He won some championships, some Grey Cups up there.
Absolutely. Oh man, I'm getting all excited here. We should have made this show about sports as well.
We don't want to bore the public though, so yeah.
Yeah. Hey, this is awesome. Are you having fun still, John?
Every day. I wake up, how am I going to embrace this day and be positive and have fun? Because you can have fun.
Yeah, exactly.
In darkest places.
Yeah, so I'm going to go back to some things you said. So everybody, you get the picture here. We're still in micro. We're getting into mezzo a little bit, which is the sector where John's doing work. But, you're weaving a story about what's the deeper meaning of his life. A lot of little nuggets. Critical thinking, right? So when you say something, I really want people to analyze that thought, have their own thoughts about it. One of the things I loved you said is that you rewrote the Sentinel so an 8-year-old could understand it. Here's something that I learned, and you can go into AI and actually do some research on it, that if you write and you speak at the level that a 7-year-old can understand, you'll have the best connections in life. And it's crazy, right, John? But when I read your book, I understood it clearly. There was no confusion. My brain didn't stop and spend minutes or moments on words trying to figure it out and lose the meaning of it. So I think kudos to you. It's well done. I'm going to put it back on the screen here. I want to ask you, what's the mission of this book? I know it's written in it, but what is the mission of it?
Well, the future, thank you for asking that question, Tom. The future of our planet depends on whether or not our children can discern fact from fiction, truth from lies, and reality from fantasy. And they're being bombarded, you and me and the entire world that's connected to the online digital world. We're being bombarded with information 24/7, 365 days a year. And with the research that we do, a majority of it, in fact, almost all of it, is unreliable. So people go, well, what does it mean, unreliable? Well, it's misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, noisy information, and now we have AI information, right?
Yeah.
So we're not set up. The human brain is not set up to evaluate things quickly or accurately. So we wanted to approach it. And thank you, Tom, for mentioning this, the 8th grade, 7th grade, because when we're young like that, we have not been through the gauntlet yet.
Yeah.
Younger people are more moldable. They're not, and I don't mean moldable because that sounds like there's a nefarious purpose, but they're more open-minded. They haven't been tainted by trauma yet, so to speak. And so we wanted to approach it in a way with clarity so people understand. But, the very first thing that we need to do as human beings when we hear something or we read something online or wherever is tap into our human intuition. Tap into it. Does it sound right? Do you get goosebumps on something doesn't sound right? Do the hairs on the back of your neck go up? Ask questions. I don't know about that, Tom. You might tell me something. It doesn't sound right to me, man. Let me check on that. Do some research. Remember in college, if you had an instructor, you're working on a PhD. When you go into a course and you see term paper, you go, uh-oh, I have to start some work in this class.
Totally.
Practice some due diligence.
Yeah.
Don't just take what people say as the gospel. Find out for yourself what's real and what's not, what's true and what's a lie. And then you can start to develop these skill sets that we need to get back to, that Plato and Aristotle and Socrates and what all these guys were doing, so we can create a better planet. Can you imagine a planet of critical thinkers, authentic people actually taking the time to do the work to make sure that they're not being fed a bunch of nonsense? Our planet would be phenomenal. We're leaders and we're commissioned to do this. As adults, we have children that we're going to leave a world to. And what kind of world are we going to leave them? A world of just surviving, or a world that we can thrive in?
Yeah, I think, whoops, I just want to add you back there by accident. Remove that. You see on the screen there's a picture of a website. We're just weaving in things here so that we can make the production the best it can be about your work. Just tell me what we're looking at there. What's that website?
That's the mission. Family, education, and truth. And really the name NeoMasculinity.solutions. Don't let it fool you. When we went online, we couldn't understand why we kept hearing toxic with masculinity. It's something that's just appeared like within the last 5 or 6 years. Yeah. So we went on to a very popular search engine and we asked, what's the meaning of neo-masculinity?
Yeah.
Right? And it basically said that in order to be masculine, a man has to accept changing social norms. Okay. Sounds really fresh and fancy and innovative. But what happens if the social norm is not based on facts or science or the truth? You're telling a man he has to lie to be masculine? We weren't buying it. So we said, we got to do something about this. I have my mentor is a Vietnam veteran. He's a very interesting guy. He's an engineer by trade. But so we went with NeoMasculinity.solutions, and we took it a bit further.
Yeah.
We entered into the realm of vintage gender roles.
Okay.
And we're not talking about identities here. That's a whole other thing, gender identities. We don't even want to touch that. That's personal. But vintage gender roles, what does that mean? Well, a man's primary purpose traditionally is to protect his family, #family, and his loved ones from threats. No more mastodons, no more saber-toothed tigers. The threats today are unreliable information. So a man, it could be a single mother too. We're not exclusive. If we've heard of mama bear before. we have to practice these vintage gender roles. And we have methodologies for that as well. We're not saying that if you have these roles to play that it makes you something other than you're not. And that gets a little bit deeper. So what we did was we took critical thinking and intuition and we coupled it with these vintage gender roles, and we created programs. We're working on another one, the Brainery. We train brains, not grains. We're working on education. We want to educate people and get people back to baseline.
Hey, hang out a sec. I love that line. We're making brains now. What was that thing you just said?
Well, the Brainery. You've heard of a granary where they put the seed?
Yeah.
We're working on the Brainery, and it's with a company out of Ireland. It's all AI, but
Very cool.
We train brains, not grains.
So we have on the screen here to honor what he's saying, everyone. If you're on the podcast later, you won't see this, but the visual. So John, just describe what's on the screen there, just at a high level.
Well, the Brainery Institute of Critical Thinking is 4 silos, right? Each silo is a grade. One of them is PhD level where you're at. That's the college and university. Then we have high school. Then we have middle school. And then we have elementary school. And we're actually building curriculums of critical thought, logic, reason, common sense. And we're scaling it in a way, we're preparing them in a way that people in those different age groups and grade levels will be able to understand. But we're very, very, very close in the next 30 days. By the end of this month, I'm told by our team that we will have out the college course first. And that will be college level Brainery, critical thinking skills and how to use them and what it all means. It's interesting because the middle school one that we're working on is cartoon characters, archetypes for logic.
I love it.
That looks like a superhero. And so that's going to be interesting because that's how we teach middle school.
I love it.
Grade school will be much more basic, high school a little bit more advanced, but we hope to have all of these silos of education online for people to go look at. And we really want to get into a school administration or an institution of higher level and work with them to develop our tools for usage at a higher level.
For sure.
We do have a mini course that I suggest if you're really interested on breaking the ice on critical thinking. It's called Brain Freeze.
Yeah.
It's for sale, but it's not expensive. To get that product and to sit down and watch it with your children, oh my gosh, you would start the wheels going and you could be a great influence on your children.
I think I saw it on your site at $340 or something like that dollars. And I want to add this to the stage. I'm fascinated by this, but we want to again profile what John's doing here. The show's about education. You mentioned about your team. There's the team you have. Just answer this question quickly. What was a seed that had you say, I got to create this company and turn, my story into education like this? I'm fascinated by that. Why do people do that? Why did you do that?
Well, because I wanted to build a company and you can't do it alone. You could build a company by yourself, but you can scale it much faster if you can find a group of people. Those people that you just showed on the screen, Tom, those are some phenomenal human beings. And I would not be where we're at with this development of this company unless I had them. I met Kristen Miller. She's in the United States now, but she came out of South Africa, a very bright and capable person who is brilliant. Clinton is in Ireland. He is an AI, techno, neuro, crazy man, and in a good way. Dave is down in Florida. He brings imagery and video to life. And Eddie is a retired military out in Arizona who understands leadership in ways that most people don't. So he's actually going to be running our mentorship program on the younger adult side.
I just want to scroll. I'm scrolling on the website. Everyone can see it. There's some really cool stuff here, some creative things. I mean, your values, and there's these pictures. I've never seen it put that way. Let's scroll down a little bit more. And then there's threads of your military pictures and experience. It's a breathtaking sight. I want to just give you a bit of a, not a laughter, a round of applause there for just the creative way that site is. I spent time on it and I couldn't get off it. It was so fascinating to me. So let's go back into Plato's and throw out another question for you. NeoMasculinity Solutions, John, challenges men and women to reclaim identity. I read it in the book there. What identity traps do you see most in today's culture, even if you identify one?
Well, we're so easily influenced, and I'm saying this rhetorically. What they've managed to do, and we'll talk about the digital world, is that they've managed to create dopamine spikes. And if you do any research on excessive amounts of dopamine, and by the way, real quickly, that site was developed by that phenomenal lady, Kristen Miller from South Africa. She's great. Awesome. But if you do the research on dopamine, it's not healthy. They say moderation is a good thing. Yeah. Well, if you're on social media 10 hours a day, you're going to have tremendous amounts of dopamine in your system. And if you look at what a lot of the stories evoke, it's fear. Fear this, fear that. So think about that. We're in a heightened state because of the dopamine, and we're in a serious what do they say? Should I stay or should I go? Fight or flight.
Fight or flight, yeah.
So all across the world, people are spiked by dopamine in a not so healthy way, and they're in a fear state. Yeah. Two things that can destroy a person. And what I've seen, conversations between people that supposedly love each other or respect each other, lifelong friends hating on their lifelong friends. And it's just, there's something not right with this digital space. And we would like to be a tool that people use to help navigate through some of that.
Yeah. I want to jump in and add something to that. I'm going to change the view on the screen here. By the way, just for the audience, you got a really cool studio there. Is that an office or a space in your home? Or is that just one of those backgrounds you added to?
No. This is my office right here. There's a lot of interesting things.
Awesome.
Well, look at your studio. You got cool things. I love the brain in the background.
Well, thank you. So, you said something earlier about you pick up quickly where people are at or their vibe or whatever. I was going to ask you that when you first started on the show with me, what are you picking up from me? And it's funny because you're saying things before I do it. I did this so I could talk about the brain. So you and I are totally on the same wavelength. So I'm going to go there for a minute, sharing some things. I had to study that. That's an actual human replica of the brain.
Love it. Yeah.
It's an adult, but it comes apart. I do public speaking with it. I take it on stage, and then I have masks around the studio, and they're about identity. That's really what my doctorate was about. But going back to this thing, you've said so many amazing things, man, on the show about neuroscience, which I don't even know if you knew you said it. I want to just add this in to add value to John here, everyone, that if you think from the brain inside out, what John's teaching us is incredible breakthrough stuff. For example, you were telling us earlier, I remember you said about football, and then you were saying about how people, they find things that are in common with each other, but then there's stuff where we are fighting with each other, right? We're having all this conflict, and that's what the world's become. When you said about Canadian football, everything changed between you and I. So this is my first point. I'm sharing with the audience as a learning tool for me. In the brain, what I learned is when I feel John and I have something in common, or he does something that I think, wow, he's kind of like me in a way. He likes Canadian football. My brain releases oxytocin, which is Dr. Paul Zak at Claremont University in Ireland. He's a friend of mine. He came on the show. He coined the word love chemical. He's well researched on this thing. But oxytocin started coming out. All of a sudden, everything between us shifted. It's like, I like John. I want to stay a while. I want to talk to him. And then if we went into the topic of, say, politics, and you and I were, say, different stripes, all of a sudden cortisol is flowing, some stress. What's he going to say next? I'm getting anxious. But you could come right back in and start talking about football again, or bring something back and hack my brain. And all of a sudden that fear, that sympathetic nervous system comes on, and I'm feeling, again, better. And I think what I'm seeing in the value of your training, and I'm doing a bit of a commercial here, you're teaching people how to not only critically think, but without them knowing, hacking the brain and using the brain the way it was created to create love, create happiness, to turn off the cortisol and the stress hormones. And the last thing about Dopamine Nation, I want to honor what you said by sharing an experience. It's a book by Dr. Anna Lemke. She's an American, and it's called Dopamine Nation, and it changed my life. And all my books down, I've read all these books here. Most of them are you guys. And by the way, the Sentinel will now be in that pile for the rest of life.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
But I'm on a bit of a rant here about dopamine. Dude, what I didn't realize is when I was stressed from my early life with my father, I became a senior leader, right? A CEO in business. And what I was doing in my spare time was things that were trying to get dopamine, watching social media, drinking alcohol, etc. And what I learned from the dopamine thing is dopamine's a reward system, but when it's in anticipation of reward, your brain releases little hits. But what I didn't know, John, is that I got addicted to 2 or 3 activities in my life: drinking, watching TV, watching certain things. And what I learned through my own mental health therapy was life's like this. So, hey, Tommy, what about going for a walk in nature? What about writing in your journal an experience from yesterday and reliving it? And that's what the breakthrough for me was. The brain's lazy, so it finds one thing. It says, okay, pornography or sex or this or that. I'm getting that dopamine hit. That's my thing. And when we don't learn to do anything else, so when I go out to eat at restaurants, my wife and I go crazy because we watch parents come in, they sit their kids at a table. These are young kids. They put an iPad in their hand, click, it's on, and the kids are watching and they're not doing anything else. And so what's happening is the brain is training the child to say, this is where I get my dopamine rush. And Anna Lemke in her book was really bold on it, said, once you get addicted to certain things, it's really hard to decompress and come off that and find other sources of healthy dopamine. So I want to know what you think about just anything I said there, and then we'll kind of journey back into this again.
Well, there's a lot of things to say.
Thanks. Sorry, my rant there. Thank you for hearing it.
No. You know, it's the art of listening and how you set up your environment. You know, I love the maple leaf. I love the brain. I love the mask because, you know, we all have worn them in our lives. And, you know, a guy on my shelf there's a mugshot of Jim Morrison, right?
I see that. Yeah, love it.
If you ever want to get into some deep, higher level, high consciousness words, read the lyrics to some of his songs. And one of the things that I did when I had been traumatized was to start writing and was to start storytelling, you know, to deal with the pain. It was basically a deflection.
That's awesome.
Reaction to get away from that. So, you know, I was telling stories to people during recess at a very young age, you know, murder mystery stuff or whatever. And I've got over 10,000 poems that I've written. Most of them are unpublished, but there were ways for me to come to grips with,
wow,
you know, who am I and why am I doing what I do and this and that. What I found very quickly was, thanks to my dad, and I said this earlier, is I actually love people. I love their stories. I love the things that they've been through. I celebrate their successes more than their failures, because if we dwell on those, we're not doing any of us any good. And so we create our own world. We do. And it sounds like woo-woo, but it's reality.
No, it's reality.
Our energy levels, and this is interesting, and we can, gosh, there's so much you and I can talk about.
For sure.
We have these frequencies, right? We have these lower frequencies and we have these higher frequencies, but there's one frequency that you have to reach. It's called courage. If you are ever going to transform your life, you have to find some courage. And I remember my therapist, after month 3, she's smiling at me kind of strangely, and I thought I had done something wrong. And she says, you make me happy. And I'm looking at her, you know, okay, but why are you looking at me like that? She says, because you're doing the work. It's not easy to overcome the things that have been doing
the work. It's hard to do the work.
It is. It's a challenge. Yeah. And you have to do the work. It's like I said earlier, there's mountaineers who summit. Yeah. And then there's mountaineers who talk about it. And the mountaineers who talk about it, the fear takes over. They lose their courage. They stay in the tent. We go up to the summit. 12 hours later, we come down and we share stories of how we felt alive. Yeah. Awesome. Now, as far as the NeoMasculinity thing goes, the masculinity and all this, there's a group out there called the Jimmy Castor Bunch. And one of the challenges I had to overcome with being violated was to prove my manhood. Now think about that. At a very young age, you're violated. You lose trust. You don't really know what's going on. You should never be exposed to stuff like that. So that song Troglodyte, look it up, Jimmy Castor Bunch. It's from the 70s. Gotta find a woman. Gotta find a woman. Yeah, but I had to prove my manhood. And in proving manhood, I broke a few hearts. And it crushed me.
Yeah.
To think that I was a party to hurting somebody like that. So it was a vicious cycle. And out of that, we can talk about the human galaxy theory that we came up with. And then our next project, Task Force Zen. But everything that I'm doing in my life now is to add value to the
I love it.
condition.
Yeah, I love it. I'm just putting another thing on the screen here just to put this back on. So you can see my paper here. It's being filled with the Johnisms. And just riffing back, you provoke me or evoke me in a way with the Doors, Jim Morrison. Man, I was just thinking when you said that about the show Apocalypse Now. You remember Martin Sheen, and they used that song in it. When I was a kid,
too, man.
Oh man, when I was a kid, we have a theater still here. If you come to town, I'll take you for a show. We watch live theater. My wife and I, we have seasons tickets, but it used to be a theater, and that's where I saw Apocalypse. It's one of those heritage buildings. It's beautiful theater, right downtown Vancouver. And I remember my dad took us to see Apocalypse Now, and that song haunts me today. For good reasons and bad.
It'd be goosebumps, man. Just what you just said. Yeah, I know the scene. I know when they used it.
Oh, I know. That's a classic movie. The other thing I wrote down here is the word courage, and got to come back to it. You know, everyone, I think what John's telling us is reaching that level of courage. I don't know if everybody is mentally healthy enough to get there without therapy. I wasn't. You told us about being violated. When you say that, are you talking about the alcohol and the drugs and the things that were in your drink?
I'm talking about the physical violation.
Okay. All right. So it took me a long time. They say that when you're you can tell me what you think, correct me. I'm wide open, man. I'm not perfect. But they say that, like, when I was at the top of my career, it's lonely at the top. So as you train and teach people at that level, I started becoming a coach, and I realized others came with blood on their shirts, but they never talked about it publicly. So in the C-suite where I grew up, you don't talk about your weakness. You don't talk about things. And one of the things I started experiencing is when I was around, I had board meetings, or I was with people like you, and they would be in a room and they did certain things, and I started melting in an emotional puddle, like this fear. Like if you raised your voice, or I had a board member once who just stood up and just ripped into me for a presentation I was making. I went, holy fuck, I literally melted, and I was so stressed after. And I didn't realize that was like PTSD being triggered from the trauma I'd experienced with my dad's behavior. And so when I look at the courage to face it, this is my last point. Everybody, you got to get with John and do some of his training. I went through CBT as well and stuff like that. But you have to face, in my opinion, you have to face and name the trauma and then process it before you can move on. So as an example, when somebody stood up in a boardroom and yelled at me, my brain said, you're stupid, you're no good, you're an idiot, you're not smart. Okay, those are things my dad might say or might treat me. My brain didn't stop to say, wait a minute, that's not true. And then when I started having feelings, I didn't realize, John, and you can take it back on this one too. People don't understand that thoughts are in our brains, right? Like you've taught us. But I never realized that emotions are in the body. So when people have trauma, when I had trauma, I'd be sitting in a room and I'm having all these icky feelings. And I didn't realize, I'm going like, what the hell's going on? Because nothing in the room here should be causing those icky feelings. The traumatic thought was stuck here. And I hadn't processed it. The brain hadn't put it away in the deeper parts. And that's why I honor your courage to do CBT, talk about it, do therapy and things, so that you can unravel all that and become the man you are. You're incredible, dude. And that's why I think your teaching is so great. So take it back for me and comment on anything I said there, but I'm going to throw this out as well to you that we're going to go into macro. You said truth is under siege in some of the work I read. What does that look like to you at the global level? Now we're getting kind of bigger here.
Well, there's a lot, you always give me so many things to unpack.
I know.
We mentioned this a little while ago, the stream and steady flow and continuous flow of nefarious information, distorted information tainted information, unreliable. It's all over the place. And
Yeah.
you can see how people were reacting to it. You were talking about if people were mentally healthy enough to be able to handle that kind of stress. And, you kind of answered it. They're not. And without training or without finding somebody that can actually help you through those minefields of
That's right.
of challenges, it can be difficult. So, trying to build a network of like-minded individuals adds strength to your journey. One thing that I even take it back a little bit further before CBT, what the ancients thought about trauma.
Yeah.
What they thought about, the shamans and the medicine men and women, they thought that when a human being was traumatized, their soul, that which makes you, your personality, gets separated from the physical being.
I see.
And they believe that we spend an entire lifetime trying to integrate again. And it's not easy when you talk about the challenges. And so part of my journey back away from the pharmaceutical drugs, which made me suicidal, I had an opportunity to meet somebody that was involved in plant medicines, all by the book, all administered properly. And I basically had 3 journeys into the spirit molecule world. And if you look up DMT, it is a chemical compound that's found in plants. It's synthesized, and then they use it in the treatment of trauma. And these 3 treatments were administered to me. I haven't gone back since. And after that, the experiences that I had while I was in that 7 to 8 to 10 minute world, basically, for all intents and purposes, brought my spirit of John Krotec back to John Krotec's body again. And again, we don't want to go off the graph, and but it's real. There's a reason that plant medicines have been around for thousands and thousands of years, and there's cave drawings. And I'm not here to sell drugs.
Yeah.
All I'm here is to talk about an experience that helped me. And in one of those experiences, we talk about courage. And Tom, I kid you not, I was in my study, very similar to this, down in Florida. And that particular morning, a demon, which you're in meditative state, a demon, I could smell it, came into the room, came right up in my face, and thought I was going to flinch. And I literally, the vibe or whatever we were putting off was, you're not going to make me jump anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know who you are or what you are. I know you're not here for my own personal positive mental health. You're not doing it anymore. Wow. And so literally that vision left me, hasn't been back since. And so
that's amazing.
It is amazing. And there's so many amazing things that we can do. But to go macro, the world needs healing on a level that I don't think, maybe it's always been like this, but because we have these digital tools, we can get news and information very quickly, and we can see people literally losing their minds over things that they shouldn't even be worried about, things that they have no control over. The more reactive we become, the less we critically think. And we want to tone that down. We want to be able to take a deep breath, hold it. Tom just told me something. I don't know, man. Let me think about this. Rather than react and say, Tom, I'm done with you. Forget it, man. 86 me. Take me off of all of your platforms. I never want to talk to you again.
Yeah.
Let me think about that for a second.
Yeah. So just so you know, what's happening throughout the show, and that's why this is crazy, John, because people, when I do live stream, my wife's asking me, what's live streaming long form? And I said, it's an hour, but some podcasts go 2 hours. And I've done, like, I'm not bragging, but 330 interviews, and we're booked out 3 months. There's a wait list.
Nice.
We're at an hour and 5 minutes. We're at an hour and 5 minutes, and tell me the truth. It's just flown by, right?
I thought we had only been talking 15 minutes.
No. So this is a teaching moment for the audience. What you're doing with me, you're skilled at this. That's why I love doing the interview with you. You understand critical thinking, but here's 2 guys. You say something. I'm not letting what you say pass by. If you notice, I'm writing on my paper, but I'm actually having thoughts about your thoughts because I've taught myself how to critically think. The majority of the world doesn't do that. So as an example, I write down here, you said reactive. And so I had a thought about what you just said, instead of being reactive, pause and respond. So here's an example of that, John. And I don't want to get into politics, but the world has so much going on, right? So your country did just something what I think is incredibly heroic and incredible, will change the world. And that was what happened in Venezuela. I believe that. So I'm listening to a social media feed because I'm in the media space. So I get all the social media podcasts and all the top 10 that I subscribe to. And this loser comes out and starts saying something that he's like, I thought he was full of shit, and he was criticizing and this and that. Here's what I did. My old self would have reacted and lost it and got all stressed. I paused and I counted backwards from 5. And I said, I'm going to go find some more information. So I went and dug up another 2 sources of information, and I found things that allowed my brain to balance the thinking. And I said, guys, full of shit. Here's the truth. And what the truth was, what helped me actually move on. And then my whole body and the way I feel, my emotions became positive. And as I realized you can't have a positive, negative thought at the same time. So my day went better. But this is what critical thinking is happening between you and I. But that pause thing you said, that's one of the biggest skills that you've taught me and taught us, is not to react, to pause and then respond by thinking about things, finding out your own information. It's incredible. I want to add another thing to the screen to share and show off your stuff. I'll just come back to the let me share this tab instead. Can you see that? Oh, there you go. Yeah, John was talking about some of the stuff that he's working on. Here, John, this is your shopping page. There's the Brain Freeze mini course. And I'm throwing this in here to break up the dialogue for a minute. But everybody, I do want you to go to the website and start buzzing around John's shopping cart, because there's a lot of value add and extra, these little courses there that I think is quite amazing. So, John, you'll send me the check in the mail for all this free promo.
I sure will. Yeah.
Let me go back to something and then give it back to you with one more question, and that is algorithms. One thing I really am starting to hate is in social media, when my mom doesn't know these things because she's 90, but the young people, my daughter, I've started teaching her. But when you watch something like your podcast or something, if you have a YouTube, the algorithms say, "Oh, Tom likes it, I'm going to give him more of that." If I don't know how to critically think, and I'm watching stuff that's all negative, every day my feed is full of negativity and I'm drowning in it. So how do you respond to that? What do you, and I think your book teaches a lot about this misinformation, disinformation, but I'm finding that it's really hard for people to figure out what is the right information. And okay, if it's misinformation, where can I find the balance? So give us just a quick strategy or a technique, something you would recommend for people who live on social media, but they're getting all the same one-sided negative info.
Well, we'll go very quickly. You mentioned politics. So, okay, one thing for politics, we call it the anger litmus test. If you're hearing a story, you're watching something, and within 30 seconds you're angry, you've obviously been influenced in a negative way. And anger is not a good state of mind to be in. So automatically that whatever is in that story that's been created is to manipulate you into anger. And if a human being remains angry long enough, they're not going to be able to critically think. So it throws you off your game. Anger litmus test, 30 seconds, turn it off. The other thing that we have looked at quite a bit is the concept of intellectual laziness. And it's easy, and we talked about this, the challenge and the difficulties of actually doing the work and doing the research. You can find the source, but check the source. Follow the money. Where is this source getting funded from? Who's funding it? Why would they fund it? The human intuition sniff test, which is in that little book, ask questions.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's very basic stuff. All of this is really fairly basic if we just do it. But the information sniff test, that's another methodology. But you can do the work. We said it. You said it, Tom. You have to do the work. If you want to say, people, not you, but people out there that put divisive things out there, what is your motive? What's your mission? Why do you want to divide people?
Yeah.
Why do you want to create more vitriol in a world full of it? Why not think about doing something positive? Why not share reliable information so you can sleep at night knowing that people are not getting mad at what you're putting out there? There's questions that we have to ask ourselves as well. Why am I listening to that story without verifying it for myself? You need to be the fact checker. When I say you, it's rhetorical. We need to fact check. We need to do investigation to find out where that information came from. Because if we're not doing the work, then we're adding no value to the planet, and there's no way that we're ever going to collaborate, let alone find a solution to things that affect both of us. Yeah. And that was an audacious mission, I have to admit. But, the level and the complexity and no casualties on the American side, that's just unheard of.
Exactly.
Let's give credit where credit's due.
Totally. And so that's just what that's just the gift of what you're teaching us here is the critical thinking. Go find out the information, and if people don't know where to find it, keep digging, but you'll find it. And I use AI now. I use 3 AI large language models to actually. I use it as a coach almost. So I'll put a question in there.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. And then I'll set I've taken courses on how to use AI. So I've set up my own personal chat GPT agents. And I'll say, every time I ask you, here's one example, everyone, or John, every time I ask you a question, I want you to tell me if there's a better way to ask the question before you answer it. Now ask me the question. So now that's in the brain of my AI personal chat GPT. Nice. So I asked the question, I said, it was actually based on something I read in your book. I said, I'm going to be interviewing the great John Krotec, and he talks about misinformation and disinformation. How do I know if information is factual or spin? And it came back at me and says, a better way, Tom, to ask that question is this. And that led me down a path to learn so much more. So these large language tools and things that are out there, everyone, John, your work is embracing that. I'm going to give you a big thumbs up for that. Let me throw one more thing out at you here that in macro. What role do storytellers, veterans, entrepreneurs, and community builders play in restoring trust?
A lot. The first thing they do is they build common ground. And I remember one of the first eureka moments that I had when I was going through my therapy was I finally realized that the things that I was going through personally, that I was not alone.
Yeah.
And the minute I figured out that I wasn't alone and that there were people that had been exposed to much worse things than me and had overcome them in a huge way, that went to great lengths. So storytelling has been around for a long time. And you know this, all the way back to the days when we were huddled around fires, when saber-toothed tigers roamed the outskirts of the village, right? And we shared stories, and stories were a way to build a relationship, develop the trust that you just mentioned, Tom, but also a way for us to try to figure out all the things that are going on around us.
Yeah.
The story, well, this happened on this venture, and then this happened. So we started to compile information.
Yeah.
And then we scribbled on, we painted on caves, we tapped into tablets, we wrote on parchments, we started to write down things that were happening, and we've gotten away from that in a certain sense. We seem to forget that there's all this knowledge out there and all of this wisdom. And I tell people all the time, create your own wise saying. There's a lot of wise sayings. People are sharing them all the time. That's great, but you're an expert too, and you have your own wisdom. Share a famous saying that you made up. Show us what you're made of. Help us. Because everybody inside, I believe, has a certain philosophical tidbit that they can share. And I'll never forget, one of my mentors said to me one time, we were talking about something, Tom. He goes, welcome to the world of philosophy. I don't know, this is 10 years ago. And I'm like, what? He goes, it's a lonely world, isn't it? And so it's okay to delve into philosophy and what it means and how the Stoics and how all the wise people, men and women of the previous ages, use this wisdom and this knowledge. Let's build upon it. And when you say you use these tools, that's phenomenal, Tom. That's a perfect example of leadership. Taking tools that are available and using them in a positive way, not using them to create more division and angry rhetoric. We create our own worlds.
Absolutely.
My wife used to say to me, and you know this as a married man, do you want to be happy or do you want to be right? And I was thinking,
happy wife.
She's right. I'm not always right. We don't
That's
have
right.
all the answers. But if
for
we
sure.
look long and hard enough, we can find them.
Yeah.
There's also a thing you can go online to, and there's out there. Go on and just go into your search engine and say, show me a chart on media bias. So I see these people, good friends of mine, they're constantly sharing stories blindly, I think, because they're sharing stories that are biased all the way to the left, all the time, over and over and over again. Then I've got friends that are on the right, and they're constantly sharing the stories on the right. And I'm like, you guys, do something different.
Yeah.
You're playing the mathematical computation game and the algorithmic rule game.
That's right.
It was written by somebody else.
Yeah.
Be on the tip of the spear. Do your own thing.
Yeah. I'm going to share something else on the screen here for a quick second here. And then we have a couple of awards for you before we wrap up. So we're going to honor you in a different way.
We love awards. And now, you know what? I hope this helps the show. And I hope and I pray and I know that your audience got at least one tidbit out of our conversation.
Oh, man. Look at like I said, the long form. What I do, John, every day after I do a live stream, Anna says my wife, she's 30 years married. January 20th is our anniversary. She's from Italy, met her in Canada. But she says, aren't you exhausted? I said, no, I get more energy, but I watch every show back after when I have some time the same day. And it's amazing the amount of, it's critical thinking on steroids. It's like, then I can take the amount of information and have thoughts about it. It's incredible. By the way, that was something I wanted to ask you. How did you learn everything you learned? What, you have some education and stuff, but how did you learn and become so knowledgeable? What's your quick answer to that?
How did I love of people, love of finding out answers and not just blindly listening to people.
Wow.
People were telling me, you know, like what you're doing here. You are on the tip of the spear. You know what you're doing, Tom? You already know what you're doing, but you are podcasting positive mental health globally. Are you kidding me? You could get a PhD just on that alone.
This is true. This is very true. And thank you for that. I receive it well. The stack of books I showed you in the back here, I've probably, since I started doing the show, I read 200 books. And some of the guests will say to me, and I say this honestly, I will not bring somebody on unless I've read their book. And a lot of hosts don't. So I read the books and I'll do reviews and things. But that in itself, my professor told me, the knowledge you have in your head from interviewing over 300 people and reading books is incredible. So that's where I get my knowledge, is through other people and through reading. You said something about money and follow the money and trends. Here's another data point. Another thing I do. Sometimes I'll wake up and I'll go to this website, and it's known out there now. It's called Polymarket. And you may or may not have heard of it. There's another one.
I like that.
But I'll go back, and this is just how crazy it is. I'm only showing this for context about how polluted the world can be. You go to Polymarket and you go on it live, and you hit the button trending, which I did, and this was done before the show. But look at the stuff these are marketplaces they're putting money on. Khomeini out of the supreme leader in Iran, Venezuela leader by the end of 2026. Who will it be? And I looked at this, but what about, like, it's okay to know where people are putting money, but what a bunch of shit. Like, this is what our world is. This is where people are spending their thinking. I would rather go to Polymark and go, people are what are the odds people are betting on to find a way to provide better critical thinking or education for children, stuff like that. But I'm going to take that off screen. I don't want to talk about it. I was just going to show you.
No, that was cool, man. Thank you for sharing that. I've got it written down, Polymark. And
what it is it shows you should research in your AI on what it is, but it shows around the world where people are putting their money. They're actually betting site. You can bet too. I don't bet. I don't use it. But I had a guest on once before, and I created a segment. I might have you back to do this. And he was an economist, and I said, let's go see what Polymarket thinks about the number of rate increases the Fed is going to make in 2026. And he told me what he told me, and we looked. And then I said, based on what you just learned, what would you advise small business owners in your country to do? And we had this great conversation. Anyway, let's get closer to wrapping up with you here. And I have one more question, then we're going to honor you a couple of things. So I got to put something on the screen to ask you this. And let me just do this one more time, John. And you're going to read something with me. So I'm going to share screen. And we're calling this the Warrior Torch. Okay, so do you see that on the screen there? Okay, so John, this segment, let me just start it off here. What would it be like to get a question from the last guest to ask our current guest, John? Well, welcome to the Warrior Torch, everybody. Our last guest, John, actually sent the question in, the last guest I interviewed, to ask you. And this is the question. And they didn't know you, didn't know who you were. I just said, what's the question for the next person? And they said, if the story you tell yourself about who you are is the very thing keeping you safe, what truth are you avoiding that would require you to live differently if you finally faced it? Wow, what a question.
That I'm a financial decision-making genius.
Really?
That would be, I'm not, and I'm learning a lot about financing and how to spend more wisely. And I found out that a lot of times, overspending and getting involved and spending on things that don't really have a great outcome is not where I need to be. So facing my financial lack of prowess is what I need for this year. Yeah.
I think you joined the club out there for most people. By the way, on that thing about your business, I looked at all that stuff we were talking about, your site and all. I know as an entrepreneur, it takes money to build a business. How do you fund the things you're doing with your business? Do you have like other things you do, or do you build and earn along the way? Do you have how do you fund, like, to do your website or things like that? It costs money. What's your secret?
Well, thank God I'm married to who I am married to, but we made a lot of wise decisions, and I sold a business 5 years ago that my wife and I had operated for 23 years. And everything that's passed in Sarasota, Florida, we owned a backpacking and travel store. And,
sweet.
We were profitable every year but one, 2000.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you.
And overcame, and we treated our customers like gold, and I think I can count on two hands how many people we made angry. But we made a lot of wise decisions. So this past decade, now we'll say this, the digital world is wide open to a lot of deception. There are a lot of people out there that promise that they can do digital products and services and, build the website and they will come. And we found out very quickly that that's not necessarily true. You have to be very cautious in the digital world, especially when you're looking to buy products and services. But everything I am is out of pocket. There's nominal coming in, on the revenue side.
For sure.
That's going to change. But as we start to get more exposure, but it's all personal funding right now, primarily.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I've been down that path with my own business, so it's always good to ask. And there's a currency difference between my currency and a lot of American suppliers I use. But man, there's so many scams out there. I've learned the hard way, but also I'm very much more wise, and I do a lot of stuff on my own. Just wanted to share something with you. My wife gave me this at Christmas. It's a calendar that has affirmations, and
awesome.
This is how bizarre today is for me in a good way. This is what the affirmation says before you even came on. Challenges are opportunities for me to grow. The more I learn, the more equipped I am to handle whatever situations come up. And this whole show is being about thinking and growth. How crazy is that?
Well, I learned a new word very quickly. I learned a new word last year called serendipity. And I didn't really know what it meant. That's what this is. And you know what? The more we become aware, Tom, you know this.
Totally.
There are great things and good things and signs happening all the time.
That's right. Have you ever closed your eye, gone to a sporting event, closed your eyes and thought about the color red, then opened your eyes and you see red everywhere? You see red?
Yeah. Yes.
So I'm now offering something to everybody that I learned, and that there's a system in the.
Pick up the human brain behind you. Pick it up just for a second. Can you reach it?
Just hang on. I got my earbuds in, so I want to make sure I don't pull them out. Just hold on, John. Just hold on. I'm gonna do something here. See if I can do it without.
I don't want to mess up your.
No.
Program, but.
All right, here's Mr. Brain.
Well, that caught my eye. That thing that you have in that brain, that human brain model, actual size, is the most advanced computer in the universe.
Yeah.
If you use it.
Yeah,
if
totally.
you don't use it, it will atrophy.
Amazing.
Use your brain. Use it. You've been gifted that. If
Yeah.
you're not using your brain, critical thinking, then why do you even have one?
So the neural pathways in here, John's absolutely right. There's a saying, you lose it or use it. When I had my brain injury, for a while, John, I worked lifting boxes, night stocking at Costco a couple of years just to get physically healthy. And I wasn't speaking much and doing things. And I started noticing that my speech was latent and things weren't working like they used to. So the neural pathways will close up. Now that John's asked me to pick this up, I want to just share a couple of other things. Everyone, so the brain, the front of the brain, John, you know this, the frontal lobes here, and it's about age 25 where we get the use of it. The frontal lobe allows us to connect to all the other parts of the brain. This allows you to critically think, John said this, let me have thoughts about it. Let me go over here and use my rational thinking, or here and this part, that. Up to age 25, we don't have the full use of the frontal lobe. So that is why it's so important for parents that if you say to your kid, you're an idiot, you're a moron, say, I love you, son, but what you just did, the behavior, that's not good. Separate the person from the behavior, because the brain growing up, everything it hears is saved inside its neural pathways as truth. And that's why there's so much trauma in the world. The last part is, in the very deep parts of it, is the hippocampus, and another part, I can't remember the name, but that's where all the trauma is stored. And what I learned, John, when I did because I have complex PTSD, I don't talk about it, but I went through recovery.
Well, you're doing great.
Well, yeah, what happened when I was a kid stayed with me. But during deep rest and sleep, I learned that the brain washes and deals with trauma and then puts it away. Otherwise, we'd be living a nightmare. There are some thoughts, maybe one or two, for some people that can be hanging and always there, and that's what triggers us. So this is, as you said, the miracle machine. And I want to say and honor you, man, that you're a guy who's bringing so much incredible knowledge. I love you. I'm so impressed with you. And as a result, I'm revealing on the show here a Amazon 5-star review for your book. So I'm going to read it. So when you sit back and
thank you for that.
Just enjoy it. You and I will have to talk offline somehow about how I can post it, because when I went to post it on the book, I couldn't quite get it on there. So just stand by here. So everybody, this is the 5-star review for this little beauty, the Sentinel book. The title of it is A Field Guide for Reclaiming Yourself in a Chaotic World. 5-star rating, Canadian review, so it's international. So here we go. The Sentinel Handbook is a powerful, compact guide for anyone reading to reclaim their personal agency. John Krotec writes, with the clarity of someone who has walked through the fire and returned with tools, not theories. The structure of the book is simple and direct, making it easy to read or return to during moments of stress or transition. I appreciated the clean narrative style and the practical steps that help ground you when life becomes overwhelming. The handbook is not meant to impress you. It's meant to wake you up. If you're navigating confusion, burnout, a season of rebuilding, confusion, conflicting information, this is a book that can help you reconnect with your inner leadership. Read it, apply it, share it. Books like this grow in value when more people join the conversation. Congratulations.
Well, thank you for that. And that's probably one of the most touching testimonials that I've ever had in my life. And so that's called serendipity. And I know that because of your information, Tom, and how brilliant and what you're doing here with your podcast show and in your own personal journey, that we're doing something right. And it's nice to know that when we sign off, and thank you to the audience as well, it's nice to know that there's people like you out in this chaotic world that are doing the positive things, that are not adding to division and all the craziness that we see. So because of you and your audience, we're living in a less chaotic world. And if enough of us can do this and share and not walk away and not be divisive, the world's going to improve. It's only a matter of time, which, by the way, we're told doesn't exist. Right?
Amen to that. Yeah. I love it. I just dropped something. I got to pick it up here. Hold on. Yeah, thank you, John. And so that's a perfect segue to the last piece here, which is, did you know you're getting an award today?
I did not. I just, the reward was being on the show, brother.
Okay.
Anytime we can share that's a reward.
Absolutely. Well, we still, and by the way, on the dashboard, I see live how many live people. We still have people watching live. Imagine 90 minutes. And we still have people watching live.
Thank you. I can't see who you are. He's got all the controls, but whoever you are, thank you very much. It means a lot to both of us. And
absolutely. So on that,
inspired. So thank you.
So on that note, by the way, the Amazon review, once I get it posted, you'll see it on Amazon. I'll send you a copy of it, but I'll email you after and wait for you to get back to me on a small piece of that. Have you heard of challenge coins before?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. Because some people collect them. So I'm going to just do this. In the studio, you can see the camera there. This comes with it. So for the audience, challenge coins surfaced during the World War I era. Practice of carrying a coin designed specifically for a unit was popular with the Army Special Forces. Carrying the coin at all times and presenting it when challenged to prove affiliation with that unit resulted in a number of consequences for those who could not produce a coin. The most popular required the coinless soldier to buy a round of drinks. That practice continues today to be popular. All around the world, as you know, these are carried. And funny thing, my dad was in AA for 23 years before he died. They had their own version of coin. So when I started the show, I said I want my vision before I knew how it would go. I want the 1% of people in the world to come through my show. I'm going to vet hard. You can't get on with an ego. And they have to be people who have taken something and turned it into something to change the world, to make an impact in society. And so I had these handcrafted, painted. The front of it is they're hefty and nicely as the image of the show, and the brand in the back is the hero's journey narrative by Joseph Campbell in its intricate detail, which is literally the storytelling journey you and I talked about. I'm biased, but John, you're now part of the Global Quiet Warrior community, and you're connected for life to me and all of us, and I'm here to help you further your mission. So congrats.
Well, thank you for that. You know what you've just done too? This is so cool because by giving and awarding that challenge coin, what you've proven again in such high fashion is that there is a oneness to all of this. And when we talk about the hero's journey, they're different journeys, but that's what creates that spirit of oneness. And imagine that the iron that's in your blood is the same iron that's in my blood. And it's the same iron that's in the fusion on the sun. And the same iron that's locked into this crystal. There's a red spot of iron in there. So we're all connected. And
hey, hold that up one more time. Let's see that.
Yeah, there's a red dot in here. This is iron.
Wow.
Iron that was trapped however long ago it was.
Yeah.
But if they were to break that down, the radioisotope and all that same iron is in your blood. It's in my blood and everybody else.
That is very cool.
So
that's the oneness. I love that.
We gotta love on each other, and I do love you too, and I know it comes from my heart. So thank you very much.
It does. So on that note, before I sign us off, tell everybody anything you want to say that you haven't, or where they can get a hold of you, and then I'll wrap us up.
Just appreciate you once again for spending your afternoon here with Tom and myself, wherever you may be, wherever around the globe. It means a lot to both of us. You can reach out to me through NeoMasculinity.solutions.
Yeah.
Just go there. There's an email there. You can also go to my other website, John T. Krotec, and you can learn out more about poetic humans we didn't talk about. And keep your eyes open for the Brannery. We're going to be school full tilt boogie with all of the curriculums available this year, first quarter, and then Task Force Zen by the end of the year. We're working on a project that is going to heal the globe at a global level. It's going to create commerce like we've never seen before. And it's going to educate people on a massive scale about other modalities that you can use to heal yourself. So wait till you hear about that one, Tom. We're so excited about that one. But first things first, this show, thank you very much. And NeoMasculinity, and off to bigger and better things each and every day.
Oh, that's awesome. You and I have to do a mastermind as you release new things, just for me, keep me up to speed. I think there's some collaboration that can happen too to help you further what you're doing. But I'm so impressed with what you said. And everybody, find that true purpose, like you heard from John here, and find the life that you deserve and desire, and live that life grab his book, check it out, and go check out everything on his website. So, John, thanks again. We'll see you all again on the Quiet Warrior Show.
Thank
Cheers.
you very much, Tom.
You're
Cheers.
welcome. Stand by.
Thank you for listening to the Quiet Warrior Show. Create is a motive-based leadership development firm. www.kreat.ca.
Just stand by, John. We're taking offline now. I just want to check something out here. There's a comment that came on screen. I'm still recording, John, so I want you to see this. Let me just remove this. I do this to etch it in the show. So this is from somebody on LinkedIn. Thank you, John. Always great to see you and hear from you, from a Freddie Medina. So that's etched into the show.
Want me to tell you about Freddie?
Yeah, we're still rolling.
Freddie, I was invited, I don't know, 7-8 years ago to a warrior retreat in Lloydminster, Saskatchewan, right? We had to fly to, we flew into Saskatoon, and then we drove all the way up, and it was awesome. But anyhow, Freddie is a United States Marine who lives out in the Southwest United States. And the person that invited me to this retreat asked me to invite other people. And Freddie was one of the Marines who knew a Marine that I knew, and he was invited on this retreat. That is one of the most amazing human beings on the planet right there. That guy is a stand-up man who has an awesome family, and Freddie and I are brothers for life. And we had a blast in Canada. We got up early in the morning. We ran around the track together and talked about the bigger things. But Freddie's awesome. And we made so many friends in Saskatoon and in Lloydminster. It's an unforgettable trip that I'll never,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And the home of another great football team, the Saskatchewan Roughriders, I think.
Oh, my gosh. Yes.
Thank you, Freddie. And John, I'm going to end this stream, but just stay on because I want to ask you one more thing before you go about the book.